I still remember the night I went to the beach with my cousins. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway. Nothing fancy, just sand, waves, and some grilled food. We arrived late in the afternoon, and the sun was already sinking behind the water. The sky looked peaceful, and the waves rolled in a slow rhythm that made me feel calm. If I had known what would happen later, I would have never stepped foot on that sand. We rented a small cabin near the shore. It was old but cozy. I liked how you could hear the sound of the water from inside. That night, after dinner, my cousins wanted to walk along the beach. I agreed, thinking it would be nice to feel the breeze. The moon was bright enough to light our way, and the tide was low. There were a few people still sitting by the water, but most had already gone back to their rooms. We walked while talking about random things. It was peaceful, but then something small caught my eye. On the sand, not too far from the waterline, I saw what looked like footprints. At first, I thought they belonged to someone who had walked earlier, but the shape looked strange. They were long, almost like barefoot prints, but the toes seemed too narrow and uneven. I pointed it out to my cousin, but he just shrugged and said, maybe someone had weird feet. I tried to laugh it off too, but something about those prints felt wrong. We kept walking until we reached a darker area where no cabins were visible. My cousins decided to turn back, but I lingered for a moment. I do not know why. I felt drawn to the water. The waves seemed to whisper in a way that made me curious. I stood there alone while they walked ahead. The air felt colder, and the moonlight reflected over the water like a silver path. I thought it looked beautiful. Then I felt something shift behind me. It was like someone was standing just a few steps away. I turned quickly, expecting to see one of my cousins trying to scare me, but there was no one, only more strange footprints trailing toward the darker end of the shore. They looked fresher now, as if someone had just walked through. My stomach tightened. I started walking faster to catch up with my cousins. That night, I brushed it off. We talked in the cabin, played some music, then went to sleep. But sometime after midnight, I woke up without knowing why. The sound of waves was louder now, but there was something else. It sounded like someone moving outside. Slow footsteps on the sand. I sat up, listening. The steps stopped, then continued again, right outside the cabin. At first, I thought maybe it was a stray animal or another guest passing by, but the steps moved back and forth, like someone pacing. I did not dare to look out the window. I just lay there, frozen, waiting for it to stop. Eventually, the sound faded, and I forced myself to sleep again. But the unease stayed with me. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it was only the beginning. The next morning, everything looked normal. The sun was bright, people were already swimming, and my cousins teased me about waking up early. I did not tell them about the footsteps. I did not want to be laughed at. We spent most of the day relaxing. I tried to forget about what happened, but a part of me kept thinking about those footprints. In the afternoon, I walked alone near the water. I wanted to see if those strange prints were still there, hoping they had been washed away. To my disappointment, I found them again, fresher and clearer than before. They led down the beach toward a rocky area no one seemed to visit. I stared at them for a long time. They looked almost human, yet something was off. The spacing was odd, like whoever or whatever walked there moved lightly but with long steps. I felt uneasy again, so I went back. That evening, we made a small campfire on the sand. Other groups were doing the same, and the beach felt warm and cheerful with soft music playing nearby. For a while, it distracted me, but as night grew deeper, fewer people remained outside. My cousins eventually headed back to the cabin, but I stayed a little longer, enjoying the cool air. Then I saw someone, a figure standing near the shoreline, facing the water. They were too far for me to see clearly, but they stood so still it caught my attention. I thought maybe it was just another guest. I watched for a bit, expecting them to move, but they never did. I finally decided to return to the cabin, but when I glanced back one last time, the figure was gone, as if it had never been there. Inside, everyone was already in bed. I tried to sleep too, but my mind kept returning to that still figure. Hours passed, and the beach outside grew silent. I must have drifted off at some point, because I woke up again to that same unsettling feeling. The air inside the cabin felt heavy, like someone else was there. This time I heard something faint, not scratching or tapping, but the sound of sand shifting outside the door. A dragging, slow movement, like someone sliding their feet through the ground. It stopped, then continued toward the window. I held my breath. I could feel it. The presence, standing right outside. The thin curtain moved slightly, and I swear I saw a shadow pass behind it. I pulled the blanket over me, not knowing what else to do. Minutes crawled by. Then, slowly, the sound faded away again. When morning came, I rushed outside. There were footprints, the same strange ones, right outside our door. My stomach dropped. These were not from any guest. They were too deep, too defined, and they circled the cabin like whoever made them was wandering around us all night. I finally told my cousins everything. Of course, they laughed at first, saying I was imagining things. But when I showed them the prints, their smiles faded. None of them wanted to admit they were scared, but I could see it in their eyes. We agreed to stay in a group that night, just in case. I wished that would be enough to keep us safe. But deep down, I already knew something was watching us. Something that did not belong there. That night, we tried to act normal. We played games, watched videos on our phones, and talked loudly like nothing was bothering us. But none of us really relaxed. Every time the wind moved the curtains or the wood creaked, we all went quiet. The beach outside sounded different too, almost like the waves were slower, heavier. Around midnight, the air became colder. We had turned off the lights to try sleeping, but all of us were wide awake. I kept staring at the ceiling, listening. At first, there was nothing unusual. Then the same slow sound returned. Sand shifting outside, as if something heavy was dragging itself across it. My cousins heard it too. No one spoke, but I felt them tense. One of them whispered, asking if it might be a stray dog. I wanted to believe that so badly, but the movement was too steady, too deliberate. It stopped right at our door. No scratching or knocking, just silence. A silence that felt like something was standing there, waiting. I forced myself to sit up and look at the door. Nothing moved, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Then, without making a sound, something brushed past the window. The curtain swayed, and a dark outline appeared for a second before disappearing. My cousin gasped. We all stayed frozen. We waited for what felt like hours until the sound finally drifted away again. When morning arrived, we barely spoke. We stepped outside together, all of us uneasy. The footprints were back, circling the cabin, deeper than before. Something had been pacing around us while we were inside, listening to us. We decided to check out the rocky area where the prints seemed to lead. Part of me hoped we might find a logical explanation, something to stop us from feeling so afraid. But when we reached that part of the beach, the atmosphere changed. It felt colder, the air heavier. The sand here was darker, and the water looked deeper near the rocks. We followed the trail until the footprints disappeared into a small patch of shadowed sand. There were no other prints leaving the area, as if whoever or whatever made them simply vanished there. My cousin suggested someone was messing with us. Another said maybe it was an animal. But none of us could explain how something could walk there and then disappear without leaving a return path. That evening, we wanted to leave, but it was late, and the nearest town was far away. We decided to pack early and leave first thing in the morning. The mood in the cabin was tense. Nobody wanted to sleep again, but exhaustion eventually won. I stayed awake longer than the others, watching the window. The beach outside glowed faintly with moonlight. For a while, nothing happened. Then, just when my eyes had started to close, I saw something move near the water. A figure, standing in the same still way as before, facing the sea. It did not look like a person this time. Its limbs seemed too long, its stance too unnatural. It stayed there for a long time, unmoving. Then, slowly, it turned its head toward the cabins. I pulled myself away from the window, heart racing. I did not look again. I lay there waiting, feeling every second drag. The sound came again later, that slow movement across sand, closer than before. I closed my eyes and prayed for morning. Morning finally came, and none of us looked rested. We packed our bags quickly without even eating breakfast. I stepped outside to load the car, but something stopped me in my tracks. In the sand, right in front of the cabin, were fresh footprints. They were deeper than ever, spaced out like something had been standing there for a long time. My cousins came out and stared with wide eyes. None of us wanted to say it out loud, but we all knew something stood there watching us before dawn. We left without looking back. The road away from the beach felt too quiet, and even after we reached town, the feeling did not fade. On the drive home, We barely spoke. It was like each of us was replaying the nights in our heads, wondering what we had really encountered. For weeks afterward, I tried to convince myself it was a trick of shadows or some strange local animal. But every time I remembered those footprints circling the cabin or that shape staring at the ocean, I knew the truth was not that simple. Something was there, and it did not want us to see it fully. It wanted to be near us, without ever showing itself completely. The weirdest part happened a month later. I visited another beach with some friends, far from that place. We were walking near the water when I noticed something in the sand. A single print, long, narrow, too strange to belong to any human. Just one, as if something had stepped there and disappeared before leaving another. My heart dropped. I told myself it was random, just a coincidence. But deep down, I wondered if whatever I saw that night had followed me, or if there were more of them watching people without anyone ever knowing. I never went back to that first beach. Even now, whenever someone invites me to a seaside trip, I make excuses. I still hear that slow movement in my mind at night. I still remember that feeling of being watched from the dark. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see that figure by the water again, waiting. Maybe it lives there, or maybe it moves from place to place. I will never know for sure. But if you ever walk alone on a quiet beach at night, pay attention to the sand. If you see those strange footprints, do not follow them. Whatever makes them does not want to be seen. And if you hear something outside your cabin, just stay inside. Do not look. Some things on this earth prefer staying in the shadows, and once they notice you, they might keep watching long after you leave. I never thought the beach could scare me. Growing up, I always saw it as a peaceful place. Sunsets, salty air, and long walks by the shore. But last year, something happened that changed how I feel about it forever. Even now, when people invite me to the coast, I find an excuse. I do not think I will ever step on sand at night again. It started when my friends and I rented a small cottage near a quiet beach. We planned a simple weekend: food, music, late night talks. During the day, everything was perfect. The beach was almost empty, and the waves looked calm. I remember telling myself how lucky we were to have found such an empty place. Later that evening, when people had gone back to their hotels, my friend suggested a night walk. I agreed without thinking. The moon was bright, and the air felt cool. We walked in a group, laughing about random things. It was peaceful, until I noticed something odd on the sand. For a moment, I thought it was just footprints, but the shape was different. They were longer than normal, like someone had dragged their feet through the sand. I pointed it out, but my friends brushed it off, saying waves could distort shapes. Maybe they were right, I thought. We kept walking, but I kept glancing at the marks. Then I saw them suddenly stop near a large piece of driftwood, as if whoever made them simply vanished. That stayed in my mind, but I did not want to ruin the mood, so I pretended I was fine. We returned to the cottage around midnight. It was small but cozy. You could hear the ocean through the thin walls. I fell asleep fast, but something woke me around 3. Maybe it was the sound of waves, or maybe something else. I could not tell, but I suddenly felt wide awake. I sat up, listening. There was a strange sound outside, like someone slowly moving across the sand. Not loud, not frantic, just steady. The hairs on my arms stood up. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, or a stray person walking by, but it did not feel like that. The sound paused right outside the wall near my bed. I held my breath. After a moment, it faded. I waited a long time before lying down again. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because morning came, and the unease was still there, but faint. I did not say anything to my friends, afraid they would laugh. If only I had trusted my instincts. The next day felt normal enough. We swam, ate grilled food, and took photos by the rocks. Everyone was in a good mood, but I could not stop thinking about the sound I heard. I kept glancing toward the cottage windows, half expecting to see someone standing there. In the afternoon, I walked alone along the shore. The tide was lower, revealing long stretches of wet sand. That was when I saw something again. Footprints, long, uneven, like the ones from last night. They followed the shoreline, then disappeared toward a darker part of the beach where the cottages ended. I told myself it must be someone with unusual feet, or maybe just a distorted print from the waves. Still, it bothered me. That night, we sat outside talking until late. The stars were bright, and the moon reflected on the water. The sound of the waves should have been calming, but I kept glancing over my shoulder. There were fewer people out than before, and the silence felt heavier. Around midnight, everyone decided to go inside. I hesitated because I felt like something outside was watching. It sounded dramatic even in my own head, so I ignored it and followed the others. Inside, we played a bit on our phones until we got sleepy. I turned off the light, hoping I would not wake up like before. But I did. Not long after everyone fell asleep, my eyes opened again. I did not hear anything at first, but I felt that same heavy awareness. Like before, as if someone was close. I sat up slowly, afraid to make noise. The sound returned, a steady movement along the sand outside the cottage. It was not scratching or tapping, just footsteps dragging slowly, too close to ignore. I froze. The footsteps moved past the front wall, then paused near the window. The thin curtain shifted slightly, even though there was no breeze. I stared, heart racing. I did not see a clear shape, just a motion like something passing behind the cloth. Eventually, the sound faded again. I waited for minutes before lying down, but sleep only came when the morning light appeared. At breakfast, I could not keep quiet anymore. I told one of my friends what happened. Instead of laughing, she looked pale. She admitted she thought she heard something near her room too, but assumed she imagined it. We walked outside together to check. Near the cottage door, we found fresh footprints, the same weird ones I had seen before. They were deep, circling in a loose loop, like someone had paced back and forth. My friends tried to act brave, but their faces told another story. We told ourselves it had to be someone messing around or a strange animal, but even saying it out loud did not feel convincing. That was when I decided I wanted to leave. But we had already paid for 2 nights, and everyone convinced me to stay one more night. They said we would stay awake together, so it would not feel scary. I wished it were that simple. That evening, we tried our best to stay in a group. We watched movies on someone's laptop, talked loudly, and kept the lights on longer than usual. But no matter how much noise we made, I could still feel that tension underneath everything. Every now and then, one of us would glance at the window without meaning to. Around midnight, the air inside the cottage grew cold. Not windy, just quietly cold. The laughter died on its own. Nobody wanted to say it, but we were all waiting for something to happen. My heart was already beating fast because I knew the pattern. It always started with that cold feeling. We decided to try sleeping, even though none of us truly believed we would be able to. The lights went off. The room fell quiet. One of my friends whispered that we should all stay alert, but there was nothing more to say. Minutes passed. Then the sound came, that familiar, steady movement outside. Sand shifting under something heavy. It moved from one side of the cottage to the other, slowly, like someone tracing the walls from outside. I held my breath, trying not to panic. We all heard it. Someone whispered my name, asking if this was what I meant the night before. I whispered yes. The sound stopped near the window, and I watched the curtain lift slightly again as if something passed close to it. My stomach turned. Then, for the first time, we heard something else. Not a voice or a whisper, just the soft drag of something long trailing through the sand. It felt like whatever was out there had settled itself right beside the wall. None of us moved. We stayed frozen, barely breathing. I stared at the edge of my bed, afraid to look up at the window after what felt like forever. The sound faded a little but did not disappear completely. It lingered, shifting every few minutes. We stayed awake until morning light came through. The moment we could see the sun rise, we grabbed our things and rushed outside. That was when we saw it more clearly. In the sand, circling around the cottage, were fresh footprints again, but this time, they were deeper and spaced wider apart, like whatever made them had been standing closer to the walls for a long time. My friend burst into tears. The rest of us just stared, speechless. No one tried to explain it this time. We packed fast, barely even looked at the beach as we left. You would think leaving would make me feel safe, but that was not the end. A few weeks later, I went to visit another beach. Different city, crowded, nothing isolated. I told myself the fear was behind me, but as I walked along the water, I saw something near the tide line. A single footprint, long, narrow, just like the ones I thought I left behind. That was when I knew it was not just that place. Sometimes late at night, I still feel that cold awareness, like something unseen is near, watching. I do not walk on beaches anymore. I do not sleep comfortably when I can hear waves, and every time someone invites me on a seaside trip, all I can think about is that curtain shifting, that slow sand movement, and those long prints circling where I slept. Even now, when I try to tell myself it was only fear and imagination, something always reminds me it was real. A dream where I hear footsteps on sand, or the way my chest tightens whenever waves play on a video. I have tried to forget, but it follows me in small ways. About a month after that second beach trip, I was staying at a friend's house, nowhere near the ocean. We were watching movies late, and everyone eventually fell asleep. I stayed awake in the living room, scrolling through my phone. It was quiet, almost too quiet. For some reason, I suddenly thought about that cottage again. The sound of sand moving, the strange footprints, that still figure by the water. My body tensed without me wanting it to. Then I heard something outside the window. Just a faint scrape, like something brushing across the ground. I froze instantly. I reminded myself that this was not a beach, that there was no sand here. But the sound continued for a few seconds, slow and steady, before fading. I did not look outside. I did not want to know. The next morning, I stepped out to get some air. The yard was empty, nothing unusual, but on the concrete near the wall, there was a faint mark, not a footprint, but an impression of something dragged. I stared at it for a long time before stepping back inside and shutting the door. I do not tell people about that part. It sounds too unbelievable, even compared to everything before. But deep down, I know whatever I encountered on that beach did not stay there. It saw us. It circled our cottage. It went near the window. It came close enough to breathe around us while we slept. Sometimes, I think it followed me because I noticed it first, because I stared too long at those footprints, because I let my curiosity linger when others walked away. Maybe some things only approach those who acknowledge them. I wish this story had an easy ending, like a lesson learned or a reason why it happened. But all I have is a warning. If you ever find yourself at a quiet beach late at night, do not assume you are alone just because you cannot see anyone. Pay attention to the sand. If the footprints do not look right, leave. If you feel like something is walking outside your window, do not look. Do not let it see you trying to see it, because once it knows you are aware of it, you might find that beaches never feel peaceful again. And one day, far from the coast, you might hear the sound of something moving slowly in the dark ground outside your home, like it finally caught up to you. That is why I do not visit beaches anymore. Some places are beautiful, but they hold things we should never meet. I wish I had understood that sooner. I used to love the beach. It was my escape whenever life felt stressful. The sound of waves, the breeze, the feeling of sand on my feet. But one night changed that for me forever. And now I avoid the shoreline completely. Even telling this story makes me uneasy, but maybe sharing it will help me make sense of what happened. Last year, I went on a short weekend trip with 2 friends. We booked a quiet beach cottage away from crowded areas. It looked simple and peaceful, the kind of place where people go to relax. During the day, everything felt normal. We swam, ate snacks on the porch, and just enjoyed the view. I remember thinking the place felt a little too empty, but I ignored that feeling. As night came, we decided to walk along the sand. The moon was bright enough that we could see without lights. The beach looked endless, and the tide was low. We walked in a line, talking about life and laughing. At some point, I wandered a little behind the others just to enjoy the sound of the water. That was when I saw something odd. Not far from where I stood were footprints. They looked fresh, but the shape was strange, longer than normal, almost stretched out. The toes looked uneven, not like a normal foot. I called out to my friends, but they did not hear me, so I hurried to catch up. I told myself it was nothing, maybe just an illusion caused by the waves. We went back to the cottage around midnight. It was a small wooden structure with thin walls. You could hear the ocean clearly from inside. I fell asleep easily, but something woke me a few hours later. I could not tell if it was a sound or just a feeling, but I suddenly sat up, wide awake. The room was dark, but the sound of the ocean was louder than before. Then I heard something else, a slow movement outside, like someone dragging their feet across the sand. I froze, listening carefully. It was steady, not rushed, almost like someone was pacing. I tried to convince myself it was just another guest wandering around, After a while, the sound faded, and I finally managed to go back to sleep. But the uneasiness stayed with me when morning came. The next morning, sunlight made everything feel harmless again. My friends teased me for waking up so early, but I did not tell them why. I did not want to sound dramatic over something I could not explain. We spent the day exploring tide pools and taking photos, but every time I looked at the sand, I found myself searching for those strange footprints. In the late afternoon, I finally saw them again. This time they were farther down the beach, leading toward a quiet stretch where no one seemed to go. They were clearer now, long impressions, spaced strangely, as if whoever made them had an unusual way of walking. I stood there staring when one of my friends called me over. I forced myself to walk away and tried not to think about it. When evening came, we made dinner and sat outside to relax. The beach was almost empty and distant. Lights flickered from other cottages. It should have felt peaceful, but I could not shake the feeling that something unseen was nearby. I stayed quiet about it, hoping it was all in my head. We went to bed later than the night before. I remember feeling tired, but restless. At some point in the night, I woke up again, not from a loud sound, but from that same cold awareness. I could hear the waves, but there was something else under it, a slow, steady movement across the sand outside. I held my breath as it came closer. It paused near the wall beside where I slept. The cottage was not thick, so I could almost feel the presence through it. After a moment, it moved again, steady and unhurried. I stayed frozen, afraid to look toward the window. Eventually, the sound faded into the distance. I waited a long time before closing my eyes again. The next morning, I finally told my friends. One laughed nervously, assuming I was half dreaming. But when we stepped outside, all of us stopped. In the sand beside the cottage were fresh footprints, the same strange long ones. They circled the wall where I had heard the movement. Nobody laughed after that. We tried to come up with excuses. A weird animal, warped sand patterns, someone playing tricks, but none of those felt right. The prints were too defined and too close to the cottage to ignore. That night, we agreed to stay awake together, thinking it would make us feel safer. I really believed staying awake would help. I was wrong. I hurried through the hallway, clutching my phone like it was my only lifeline. The air felt heavier the deeper I moved, as if something unseen was following right behind me. I could hear my own breathing grow fast and uneven. I whispered to myself that it was just stress, that I was imagining everything. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong. At the end of the corridor, the door to the stairwell was barely open. I reached for it, expecting resistance, but it slid wide almost too easily. The stairwell was dim, lit only by the faint glow from the emergency light, and every step down echoed into the dark below. My legs shook with each step, yet stopping felt worse than moving forward. Halfway down, my phone vibrated. I froze. It was a message, the same username from the app. My chest tightened as I opened it. It read, "You shouldn't have left." I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I forced my feet to move faster. The stairwell twisted, floors passing like a blur, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. All I could think about was the entrance, the street, the open sky. When I finally reached the last step, I burst through the door into the lobby. But the lobby wasn't empty. Someone was standing there in the shadows, facing me, as if they had been waiting the whole time. Their voice reached me before their face did. "I told you I liked how fearless you seemed." My blood turned cold. I backed away, but there was no other exit, no shortcut, nowhere to run. The figure stepped forward, and the dim light finally revealed a familiar profile. The same person from the pictures, but their smile was nothing like what I saw online. It felt wrong. Something twisted lived behind it. I realized then that I wasn't dealing with someone searching for affection. I was dealing with someone who had planned all of this long before I swiped right. I pressed myself against the lobby wall, feeling my heartbeat shake through my entire body. He stepped closer, slow and confident, like he already knew I had nowhere to go. His eyes studied me with something between fascination and hunger, and every instinct I had screamed that this was not the first time he had done this. I tried to speak, but my voice barely formed. He raised his hand, not to touch me, but as if he was presenting something invisible between us. "You made it easy," he said. "All you wanted was attention." Hearing those words broke something in me. I thought of every message, Every picture, every time I ignored the uneasy feeling because I wanted someone to care. I felt so foolish, trapped by something I thought was harmless. But beneath the fear, a different instinct sparked. Survival. I didn't wait for him to reach me. I slipped past him the moment he moved his head, darting toward the main entrance. For a moment I thought he would grab me, but he didn't expect speed. The door gave way, and the night air hit me like ice. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't slow down. My lungs burned, tears blurred my sight, but I kept going until the building disappeared behind me. I didn't stop until I reached a crowded street, where lights and strangers made me feel less alone. I blocked the app, changed my number, and avoided online dating for months after. But even now, when I walk alone or read a message from someone new, I feel that same chill. Because he wasn't a ghost or legend or something impossible. He was real. And somewhere out there, he might be waiting for the next person who swipes right. I want to tell you something that happened to me a few years ago. And even now, when I think about it, I get this uneasy feeling in my stomach. It was supposed to be just a simple break from work. I went to a quiet beach, the kind that is not crowded or commercial. A friend recommended it, saying it was peaceful and perfect for clearing your mind. I thought it sounded great. The first day was nice. I walked along the shoreline, listened to the waves, enjoyed the wind. There were fishermen far in the distance and a couple cooking near their tent. But mostly it felt like I had the place to myself. I liked that. I checked into a small homestay run by an older couple who seemed kind but distant. They gave short answers to everything, which I thought was just their personality. That evening, I sat outside and watched the sunset. The beach got quiet very fast after the sun went down. By 8 in the evening, it felt like everyone disappeared. I heard the ocean, but something about the silence made me uncomfortable. I brushed it off and went inside to rest. Later that night, I woke up without knowing why. The window was open, and the air felt colder than before. I went to close it and saw someone standing near the shoreline. They were alone, facing the water, not moving at all. At first, I thought it was someone fishing, but they did not have anything with them. They just stood there like a statue. I watched for a while, thinking maybe they were meditating or something like that. But the longer I looked, the more I noticed they were too still, and there was something slightly off about their posture. It felt wrong. I closed the curtains, trying to ignore it, but the image stayed stuck in my mind. The next morning, I asked the owners if locals usually hang around the beach at night. They just said the beach was not safe after dark. I asked what they meant, but they just changed the subject, almost as if they did not want to talk about it. That day, I went back to the water, but I kept thinking about that person. What were they doing there? Why did the owners seem uncomfortable when I mentioned it? Was it just a warning to keep tourists inside? Or was something else going on? At that time, I did not think too deeply about it. I was more curious than scared. I wish I could say it stayed that way. But the real fear came later, and I was not ready for it. The second evening, I walked along the beach again, but I stayed closer to the homestay. The wind felt stronger than before, and the waves seemed louder, even though the weather looked fine. I tried to enjoy it, but I kept glancing toward the same spot where I saw that person the night before. It was empty now, yet I could not shake the feeling that someone should be there, like I was expecting them. After dinner, the older couple reminded me not to go outside late. They said it politely, but with a strange seriousness. I laughed it off and told them I planned to sleep early anyway. I was lying, though. Around 11 that night, curiosity got the better of me. I sat on my bed and stared at the curtains. I did not even plan to open them at first, but after a few minutes, I slowly pulled them aside. The beach was darker than the first night. Clouds covered the moon, and it was hard to see anything clearly. For a moment, I thought the beach was empty, and I felt relief. But then, I noticed a shape near the water, right where I saw someone before. It was faint, like a shadow left behind by something that moved. I leaned closer to the glass, squinting. It looked like the same figure standing there again, facing the sea, unmoving just like before. Part of me wanted to go outside and check, but something deeper told me that would be a terrible idea. I shut the curtains and tried to ignore it, but I could not fall asleep. My mind kept returning to that lonely figure. Around maybe 1 in the morning, I forced myself to look again. This time, I did not open the curtains. I peeked through a tiny gap. The figure was closer, not at the shore anymore, but halfway up the sand. I froze. I stared for what felt like minutes. I did not see it walk. I just knew it was nearer than before. It stood facing the direction of the homestay. I could not make out a face, but I felt watched, even from that distance. I closed the curtains completely, switched on my room light, and sat on the bed trying to calm myself. It could have been someone wandering or a strange illusion. That is what I told myself. Eventually, I lay down and tried to sleep with the light on. The next morning, I asked the old couple again if anyone walks on the beach at night. They gave the same answer, but looked uncomfortable when I described what I saw. They exchanged a glance. Then the woman quietly told me that people in the village avoid the beach after sunset. I asked why, but she just said it was better not to ask. That answer stuck with me all day. Why warn people but never explain anything? I decided to stay in the room that night, but curiosity already had its way with me. I did not know it yet, but I was about to learn why they never explain anything. That night I tried to distract myself with my phone, scrolling aimlessly just to avoid thinking about the beach. But every small sound outside made me turn my head toward the window. I told myself I would not look again. Yet after midnight, I found myself slowly moving toward the curtains, like something was pulling me. I left just a tiny gap to peek through. At first, I saw nothing but darkness and the faint line of waves. I almost felt silly for being so nervous. But then my eyes adjusted. The figure was back, standing much closer than before. It was now near the boundary where the sand met the grassy edge, almost like it was observing the buildings. I stepped back from the window without fully processing what I saw. My heart raced, and my mind kept trying to give logical explanations. Maybe it was one of the owners checking the beach. Maybe someone else was staying nearby. Maybe anything other than what it felt like. I paced around the room, thinking if I should go and tell the owners. I stood at my door, hand reaching for the handle, but something in me hesitated. I did not want to look foolish or scared over nothing. So I just stayed inside and sat by the wall opposite the window. Minutes passed. I could not help it. I looked again. The figure was gone. The beach was empty. I felt relief, but it was mixed with dread. I scanned the sand, the trees, the water, searching for any sign of movement. Nothing. I shut the curtain and leaned against the wall, trying to calm my breathing. A moment later, I decided to be brave and opened the window slightly to feel the air. The wind was cold, and it carried a strange smell, like wet earth mixed with something old. It reminded me of forgotten places. That smell made something in me snap. I closed the window quickly and backed away. I could not explain why, but it felt like something was nearby that should not be. I did not sleep until early morning. When I finally drifted off, it was because my body gave up from exhaustion. I woke up late with heavy eyes, barely remembering when I dozed off. I thought about checking out and leaving, but something made me stay. Maybe it was curiosity, or the feeling that leaving would not solve anything unless I understood what I had seen. I regret thinking that now. That evening, the owners mentioned rain might come and told guests to stay inside. I nodded, pretending like everything was normal, but I already knew I would look again even if I promised myself I would not. I should have listened to their warnings, but I did not. The worst part was still ahead of me. That final night felt different from the moment the sun disappeared. The air was heavier, and the waves sounded strangely distant, as if the sea itself was withdrawing. I stayed on my bed with the curtains closed, trying hard not to give in to curiosity. But after a while, the quiet started to feel louder than anything I'd heard before. I told myself I just wanted to make sure nothing was there. So I slowly opened the curtain a little, maybe just enough for one eye. At first, I could not see the beach clearly because the sky was darker than any previous night. Then, gradually, I spotted it again. The same figure, only this time, it was not by the shore or the sand. It was standing closer than ever, near the path leading up to the homestay. My chest tightened. I told myself to close the curtains and ignore it. I tried. I turned away and sat on the floor, hugging my knees like a child. But I could not shake the feeling that it was coming closer, even if I was not watching. Finally, fear mixed with something else, almost like I needed proof. I stood up again, opened the curtain wider, and looked. The figure was right outside the property line, too close. I could not see a face, but I could tell its head was turned toward the building. The way it stood made it seem like it was waiting for something. I shut the curtain in panic, switched on the light, and sat frozen. I thought about running to the owners, but what would I say? That a shadow on the beach followed me? That something wordless was staring at the house? After some time, I gathered my courage and looked again. It was gone. I stared and stared, searching every part of the beach. Nothing there. No shape, no movement. But then a thought hit me I wish never crossed my mind. What if it was not on the beach anymore? That idea filled me with a fear I cannot fully describe. I backed far away from the window, locked my door, and sat with my back against it. I did not sleep at all that night. At sunrise, I packed my things and left without breakfast. I told the owners I had to return early for work. They did not question it. They just nodded like they knew why. As I walked away from the beach, I did not look back. I could still feel that same uneasy presence behind me, like something unseen remained on that sand, watching people come and go. Until today, I do not know what I saw or why it kept appearing. I just know I will never return to that beach, and I do not go to quiet beaches anymore at night. Maybe it was all imagination, but it did not feel like it. It felt real, too real, like something lonely and drawn toward anyone foolish enough to look back at it. And the worst part is that sometimes when I am near water at night, I get that same chill, like something still remembers me. I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago when I visited a quiet beach alone. I went there because I needed a break. Life felt heavy, and I thought a peaceful place by the sea would help me clear my mind. It was a small coastal area, not famous or crowded, just a simple village with a shoreline that looked untouched. When I arrived, the first impression was perfect. Soft wind, a long stretch of sand, and barely any visitors. I checked into a small cabin owned by a man and his wife. They were polite but not very talkative. They told me to enjoy myself and rest well. I thought nothing of it. That afternoon, I walked along the water. It was calm, almost too calm. I liked the silence, though. I watched birds flying near the waves, and I collected small shells out of habit. For a while, I felt at peace. I sat close to the edge of the water and just watched the horizon. When the sun began to set, I noticed something unusual. The beach started emptying fast. Fishermen packed their things and left quickly. A few locals near the village homes moved inside before the light even faded. I wondered why everyone left so early. It was not even fully dark. I went back to my cabin and asked the owner about it. He just said the beach was best enjoyed during the day and that nights were quiet. His tone felt like a warning, even though he smiled. I brushed it off, thinking maybe the place just had no nightlife. Later that night, I could not sleep. I sat near the window and watched the coastline. There was a faint moonlight, enough to make out shapes. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then I noticed what looked like a person standing alone near the water. They were not moving, just standing and facing the sea. I assumed it was someone enjoying the night breeze, but something about their stillness bothered me. Most people shift their weight or gesture, but this figure did not. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide whether to ignore it or keep watching. Eventually, I closed the curtain and tried to sleep, but it took hours for me to drift off. Even in sleep, I felt uneasy, like I did not want to look outside again. At that moment, I had no idea that I was just seeing the beginning of something I would never forget. The next morning, I convinced myself I had imagined things or misjudged what I saw. Maybe it was just a fisherman watching the tide. I tried to forget about it and went for another walk. The beach looked normal again. Families were swimming, some kids were playing, and the air felt light. I talked to a local vendor selling snacks and casually asked if people liked walking by the beach at night. He paused for a moment, then simply said that most villagers stayed inside after sunset. His tone was polite but distant. When I gently asked why, he just smiled awkwardly and said, "Visitors sleep better if they do not worry about that time." That answer did not help at all. In fact, it made me more curious. Later in the afternoon, clouds gathered. The sky turned gray, even though the forecast said it would be clear. The waves grew stronger, and people slowly began leaving again. By sunset, the beach looked almost abandoned. Inside my cabin, I tried reading something to relax. but my mind kept drifting back to that figure from last night. I wondered if I should look outside again or ignore it. A part of me wanted to believe it had just been a random person. Around 10 in the evening, I gave in to curiosity. I sat by the window and watched the beach again. It took a while for my eyes to adjust. The moon was hidden tonight, so things were harder to make out. Just when I started to think nothing would appear, I noticed it. The same figure stood near the water again. Same posture, same direction, facing the sea. But this time, I was sure nobody else was around. No fishermen, no tourists, just that one person. I leaned closer, feeling confused and uneasy. Was it someone who lived near the coast? Was there some ritual or habit I did not understand? I tried to think logically, but something about the stillness felt unnatural. I pulled my eyes away and shut the curtains, telling myself not to look again. But as the night went on, the thought kept bothering me. Who stands alone like that in total darkness? When I finally fell asleep, it was with that image burned into my mind, and I had a strange feeling that whatever it was becoming aware of me too. The next day, I woke up feeling tired, as if I had not rested at all. I thought about checking out early, but I convinced myself I was overthinking everything. Maybe I was stressed before the trip, and my mind was playing tricks on me. So I stayed. I spent most of the day sitting near the shore, trying to enjoy the view. But even under bright daylight, I caught myself staring at the exact spot where I saw the figure. Nothing unusual happened, yet my eyes kept going back to it, as if something invisible lingered there. Later that afternoon, the owner's wife gave me a friendly reminder. She said visitors should stay inside after dark, especially when the tide is high. I asked her if it was dangerous, and she just replied that the sea can be unpredictable. Her voice was calm, but I felt she meant more than she said. By evening, the clouds returned, and the air felt heavier than before. I sat inside, promising myself I would not look outside again. But the silence made my thoughts louder. What if that person was there again? What if it had moved closer? Around midnight, curiosity won again. I slowly opened the curtains, but instead of looking toward the water, I first checked the sand. My heart sank. The figure was not by the water this time. It was higher up on the beach, closer to the cabins. It did not move. It just stood there, facing my direction, as if it knew where I was watching from. I stepped back from the window and sat down on the floor, trying to breathe normally. I did not want to look again, but after a few minutes, I felt drawn to check. When I did, the figure was still there. Same place, same posture. I could not see details, only the shape and its eerie stillness. I closed the curtains and kept the light on. I could not sleep, so I sat awake until the first sign of morning. When I finally looked outside after dawn, the beach was empty again. No footprints, no signs someone had been there. I wanted to leave so badly, but something made me stay one more night. Maybe I wanted answers, or maybe I just hoped everything would stop on its own. Looking back, that was the worst decision I made. That last night is the reason I never returned to that place. I tried staying busy, reading, listening to music, anything that would keep me from thinking about the beach. But the atmosphere felt different even before sunset. The wind was colder, the waves sounded distant, and the whole place seemed quieter than usual, as if nature itself was waiting. I told myself I would not look outside, but that promise faded quickly. I kept glancing at the curtains without meaning to. It was like waiting for something without knowing what. Around midnight, I finally gave in. I opened the curtain just a little and looked toward the sand. The figure was there again. This time, I could tell it was closer than ever before. It stood at the point where the sand met the path that led to the cabins. Even from a distance, I could feel its presence. I could not see its face or features, but I felt watched. My heart was beating so fast, I could hear it. I was about to close the curtain when something changed. The figure shifted slightly, not moving toward me, but turning its body just enough that I could tell it was fully facing where I was. That small change terrified me more than anything. It meant awareness. It meant intention. I shut the curtain fast and backed away. I locked my door even though it was already locked. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, feeling like a child who was scared of the dark. Minutes passed, maybe hours. I lost track. At one point, I thought about leaving right then, but I was too afraid to walk outside. When dawn finally came, I packed all my things without even showering. I I told the owners I had to leave early. The old man just nodded silently, like he knew exactly why. As I walked away, I kept my eyes forward and refused to look back at the water. But even now, whenever I think about that beach, I still feel that same cold presence watching from a distance. I avoid quiet beaches now. I do not stare at the shoreline after dark. And sometimes, when I am near the sea and the world gets too silent, I get that same feeling again, as if something is out there, still waiting for someone foolish enough to watch it. I have never told this story to anyone in person, mostly because I am afraid people will think I imagined everything. But it happened, and even now when I think about it, I feel uneasy. It started when I decided to spend a weekend at a quiet beach far from the city. I just wanted peace, nothing dramatic. The beach was known by locals, but not popular among tourists, which made it perfect for what I wanted. When I arrived, it was beautiful. Long shoreline, gentle breeze, and barely anyone around. I checked into a small inn owned by an older man who greeted me kindly, but spoke very little. My room had a balcony facing the beach, which I thought was the best feature. I felt excited to wake up to ocean views. That first afternoon was relaxing. I sat near the water for hours, letting the waves touch my feet. Families packed up early, and fishermen left before dusk. I remember thinking it was strange how quiet the place became as soon as the sun started to fade. It was only around 6, yet people disappeared quickly. I went back to my room, showered, and sat outside watching the sea. The beach was almost empty by the time the sky turned dark. The moon lit the water just enough that I could see the tide moving. I liked the calmness at first, but the quiet began to feel heavy. It was not peaceful anymore. It was more like the place was empty on purpose. Later that night, while lying in bed, I suddenly felt restless. I got up to close the curtains, but caught sight of something near the shoreline. It looked like a person standing alone, facing the water. At first, I thought it was someone enjoying the breeze, but the longer I watched, the stranger it became. The person did not walk or sit, just stood there, perfectly still. I stared for a while, but eventually told myself to ignore it. Maybe someone was clearing their head like I did earlier. I closed the curtain and tried to sleep, though it took me a long time to relax. Something about that lone figure bothered me. It did not feel normal. The next morning, I asked the owner if locals often walk the beach at night. He paused before answering and simply said most people avoid the beach after dark. His tone was polite but serious. When I asked why, he said it was just a habit people had. That answer did not satisfy me, but I let it go and tried to enjoy my day. I wish I had listened more carefully. The second day went smoothly at first. I walked along the shore, ate simple food from a nearby stall, and chatted with a fisherman who told me the sea had its own personality. He smiled while saying it, but there was a hint of seriousness behind it. I asked if he liked working at night, and he immediately shook his head, saying he never stayed after sunset. That made me curious again, but everyone there spoke in that same vague way whenever the topic came up. It felt like the whole area kept a quiet understanding that visitors were not meant to question. By evening, the beach emptied, even faster than the day before. The wind grew sharper, and clouds covered the horizon. People hurried home, as if they did not want to be outside after a certain time. I stood by my balcony, watching them disappear into their homes. I could not help thinking about that figure I saw the previous night. After dinner, I told myself not to look outside. I even closed the curtains early, but as midnight approached, my curiosity grew stronger. I felt like something was waiting to be seen, even though I did not want to see it. I sat on the edge of my bed, debating whether to peek or not. Eventually, I stood up and slowly opened the curtains. My eyes adjusted to the darkness. At first, the beach looked empty. The tide rolled in quietly, and the sand looked untouched. I felt relieved. But then, I saw it again. Not by the water this time, but further up the shore. The same figure, facing the sea, unmoving. I could not make out details, only the shape and its stillness. My heart sank. It was almost exactly like the night before, except the distance seemed shorter. The more I stared, the worse the feeling became. I kept thinking it was someone, but no normal person stands like that for hours. I closed the curtains, but could not stop thinking about it. I lay in bed with my eyes wide open, listening to the wind outside. I considered leaving the next morning, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe stubbornness. Either way, I stayed. The next morning, I watched the shoreline, half expecting footprints or signs that someone had been there. There were none. The sand was smooth, untouched. That made me feel even more uneasy. I tried to tell myself I imagined everything, but deep down, I knew I did not. I could not explain what I saw, and that made it worse. I barely slept that night. The wind outside sounded rough, and every time I closed my eyes, I imagined faces peering in through the window. By morning, I felt uneasy, but tried to act normal. We spent the day exploring tide pools and taking photos, but something felt off. The air seemed thicker, like the beach was hiding something. Around sunset, I went for a walk alone. I followed the shoreline until the light turned orange and the waves looked darker. I paused and looked out at the water. That same shape was there again, still watching. This time I was sure it was closer than before. My stomach dropped. I yelled out a shaky greeting, pretending I believed it was a regular person. No reply, just the sound of waves. That night, my friends fell asleep early, exhausted from swimming. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying the scene. If it was a person, why stand in the exact same place twice? Why vanish so quickly before? A creeping thought grew in my mind, one I did not want to say out loud. What if it was not a person? It must have been past midnight when I finally drifted off. I woke up because I felt something, like someone standing near me. It was silent, but I knew I was not alone. Slowly, I opened my eyes. The tent was dim, lit only by the moon filtering through thin fabric. My friend slept beside me, but near the entrance, I could make out a faint outline, not inside, but right outside the flap. A shadow, still and tall. I froze. My breath felt trapped in my chest. I stared until my eyes hurt, trying to convince myself it was just a tree or a trick of light. Except there was no tree that close to the tent, and I could sense it through the fabric, like something was focusing on me. I shut my eyes and whispered a quick prayer under my breath. When I opened them again, the shadow was gone, but the dread lingered. I waited for morning like my life depended on it. We packed up the next day. Everyone was cheerful, except me. I felt cold even under the sun. I avoided looking at the water, afraid the shape would be there again. Right before we left, I turned once more toward the shore. I do not know why. Maybe part of me hoped nothing would be there, but it was. Far out, almost where the horizon begins, something stood above the waterline. No waves moved it, no wind bent it. I looked away immediately, heart racing. Whatever it was had followed us for 3 days. I still think about it sometimes. I wonder if anyone else ever saw it. I wonder if it ever moved closer when I was not looking. All I know is that I will never set foot on that beach again. I tried to tell myself it was just stress or imagination, but deep down, I knew it was not. The feeling stayed with me long after we drove away. Even when we reached the city, even after I got home and took a long shower, I still felt watched. The ocean smell clung to me in a way that felt wrong, like it had followed me instead of fading away. For weeks after the trip, I avoided going anywhere near water. I even skipped lunch with friends because the restaurant was near the shoreline. I did not tell them why. I was afraid they would laugh or think I lost my mind. But at night, when the world was quiet, I remembered the shape on the water, the stillness of it, the shadow outside the tent. My skin crawled just thinking about it. One night, about a month later, I was scrolling through my phone while lying in bed. Everything was normal until I suddenly felt that same heavy pressure in the air, the way the tent felt. That sensation like someone was standing over me, watching. I turned on my side and faced the wall, trying to ignore it. My heartbeat was loud and my palms felt cold. At some point, I fell asleep. I woke up near dawn with my window slightly open. I was sure I had closed it before. Outside, the air smelled like the sea, not the fresh kind, but the stale, deep smell you get from old wet sand. I shut the window immediately and just stood there, breathing fast. That was when it hit me. Maybe whatever that thing was did not stay at the beach. Maybe it followed me home, or maybe it never needed to move at all because I brought the memory with me. Some fears stick in your mind like they have roots. I eventually forced myself to go back to normal life, but I still avoid beaches. Every time someone mentions planning a trip, my chest tightens. I smile and say, I am busy. I have never told anyone the whole story until now. Sometimes, late at night, When the wind is quiet and the room is too still, I get that same feeling again, like something is nearby, waiting, watching, and I never look toward the window. I am too afraid I might see that same dark shape standing there, silent, patient. I wish I could forget it, but I cannot. Some places take something from you, and some things follow you home, even when you think you left them behind. I want to tell you something that still makes me uneasy whenever I think about it. It happened a couple of years ago when I visited a quiet beach with a small group of friends. It was supposed to be a short weekend trip, nothing dramatic or extreme, just sand, sunset views, and late-night talks by the shoreline. I never imagined it would be the kind of memory that follows me for years. The beach was not crowded. It was the sort of place locals recommended, but tourists did not know much about. The road there was long, with trees on both sides and barely any houses in sight. When we arrived, the sun was low, and the air smelled like salt. The calm kind of evening that makes you believe nothing bad could ever happen there. We set up our tents near a spot where the sand felt soft and untouched. The ocean looked beautiful from there, gentle and slow. I remember thinking that it was one of the most peaceful settings I had seen in a while. We grilled food, shared stories, laughed about silly things, and listened to the waves. Everything felt normal. But after the sun disappeared and the world turned dark, the place changed. The beach was quiet in a way that made my ears feel strained. The waves were still moving, but the air felt heavier. I remember sitting outside my tent, watching the ocean, feeling like something had shifted, not in a dramatic way, just a subtle discomfort that was hard to explain. My friends eventually went into their tents, one by one, tired from the long day. I stayed alone for a little bit longer, telling myself I just wanted to enjoy the breeze. To be honest, I stayed outside because I did not want to sleep yet. I had this strange feeling that if I closed my eyes too soon, I would wake up to something I did not want to see. That was when I noticed something unusual on the shore. It looked like a figure standing near the water. At first, I assumed it was just another camper or someone walking their dog. But the more I looked, the more I realized it was not moving at all. It just stood there, facing the waves. I wanted to call out or ask if they were okay, but something held me back. Maybe curiosity mixed with fear, maybe instinct. The longer I stared, the more uneasy I felt. It was as if the night itself was waiting for something to happen. Eventually, I went into my tent, hoping I would forget about it by morning, but I never did. I tried sleeping, but it was not easy. The air inside the tent felt warm, but the uneasiness from earlier made it uncomfortable. I kept thinking about that figure by the shore. Who stands alone like that in the dark, not moving at all? I kept telling myself it was probably nothing, just someone enjoying the night. Still, my thoughts would not settle. At some point, I finally drifted off, but it felt like I had barely slept when I woke up again. It was still dark outside. I could hear the waves quietly stretching and retreating. I checked my phone, but there was no signal. Time moved strangely out there, like it was slower than normal. I decided to step outside for fresh air. The beach looked empty at first. The stars were bright, and the ocean had that soft glow when moonlight hits it. I was about to relax when I saw it again. The same figure, standing in the same place, facing the sea, unmoving. This time, a chill traveled up my spine. Hours had passed, and it was still there. Nobody stands like that all night. Maybe it was just my imagination, I thought. Maybe I was half asleep earlier. But deep down, it did not feel like imagination. I considered waking my friends, but I was afraid they would laugh, or worse, think I was overreacting. So I stayed there watching, trying to make sense of it. I stared too long, hoping the figure would move or turn around so I could see a normal face, something human, anything that would make it less strange. But it did not. It just stood, like part of the landscape, too still to be normal. I decided to sit near the fire pit, letting the dim light make me feel less alone. Eventually, I went back inside the tent, though I barely slept for the rest of the night. The next morning, sunlight flooded the beach. Everything looked safe again. Birds were flying, the water was blue, and people were starting to walk around. When I looked toward the area where the figure had stood, there were footprints leading away, but no sign of anyone. I convinced myself it was simply some night traveler or fisherman. but a small part of me wished I had never seen it in the first place. The day went on normally. We swam, explored the rocks, and took photos. I did not tell anyone about what I saw because I did not want to sound strange. I tried to forget it, but every time I looked at the ocean, I thought about that motionless figure. It bothered me more than it should have. By late afternoon, clouds began to gather. The sky changed from clear blue to a grayish shade. The wind grew stronger and the waves started to hit harder. We thought it might rain, so we decided to rest inside our tents early. The others played music, chatted, and eventually fell asleep. I lay there listening to the sound of the tide getting rougher. Maybe it was the gloomy weather, but that uneasy feeling returned. I kept thinking about the footprints from earlier. They did not look like casual walking marks. They went straight from the waterline toward the trees, like someone had walked in a direct line without hesitation. Night arrived faster than I expected. The sound of the waves grew louder, or maybe it just felt that way because everything else was so quiet. I tried focusing on breathing and calming myself. I reminded myself that beaches can feel intimidating at night. It is normal. Still, at some moment, I could not resist stepping outside again. The air was cold, and the sand felt damp. The ocean was darker than before, almost like it was hiding something underneath. I scanned the shoreline, trying to reassure myself that nothing was there. But then, at the far edge of the water, I saw something again. Not as clear as before, but there was definitely something standing there. Same spot, same posture, still facing the sea. I stood frozen for a few seconds. My heart pounded so hard it felt uncomfortable. I looked back at my friends' tents, thinking of calling them, but I just stood there in silence. I did not know what I wanted them to do if they came out. Would they even see what I was seeing? I backed up slowly toward my tent. I did not want to turn my back fully to the beach. Something inside me said that as long as I could see it, I was safer than if I ignored it. Eventually, I slipped into my tent without looking away. When I zipped it closed, I sat there breathing heavily, waiting, hoping nothing else would happen. I barely slept that second night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that figure still standing by the water, as if it was waiting for something. I kept listening to the waves, expecting to hear footsteps approaching the tents. I tried to tell myself I was being dramatic, but fear does not always listen to reason. At some point near dawn, exhaustion finally caught up with me. I fell asleep, but it was a shallow kind of sleep. When I woke again, the sun was rising. The air smelled fresh after the gloomy wind from the night before. My friends were already outside preparing breakfast, laughing, and planning the next swim as if nothing strange had happened. I stepped out, pretending everything was fine. The beach looked beautiful again, calm and harmless, but I immediately looked toward the area where I had seen the figure both nights. The sand was smooth, untouched. It was as if nobody had ever stood there at all. I decided not to say anything. It felt pointless. Maybe they would think I imagined it. Maybe I even tried to believe that myself. But before we packed up to leave, I walked by the edge of the water one last time. Something caught my attention half buried under wet sand. A pair of footprints leading out toward the sea, stopping right where the water met the shore. They did not continue into the ocean. They simply ended, like whatever made them had disappeared right there. I felt a deep chill, the kind that makes your stomach drop. I stepped back and joined the others without looking again. We left the beach a couple of hours later, but I never really left that feeling behind. Sometimes, late at night, when I think about it, the memory still makes me uneasy. The way that figure stood, silent, as if listening to something beneath the waves. The footprints that led away, and then returned to the water without ever coming back. It makes me wonder if there are things at the edge of the sea that do not belong to our world. Things that only appear when the night is quiet enough for fear to settle. I still like beaches, but I do not stay out late on the sand anymore. I do not stare too long at the ocean in the dark. And if I ever see someone standing by the water again without moving, I will leave immediately, because some things are better left unexplored. I want to tell you about a beach trip that still unsettles me whenever I look back on it. It was supposed to be fun, relaxing, and simple. I did not expect anything strange to happen at all. In fact, I thought it would be one of those peaceful weekends that you forget about after a few months. But the memory has stayed with me in the worst way. A couple of friends invited me to visit a quiet coastal area they had heard about from a coworker. Not a tourist spot, just a small stretch of sand with a few fishing boats and almost no visitors. They said the sunsets were amazing, and the nights were cool. It sounded perfect. We arrived around afternoon after a long drive through narrow roads and empty fields. The beach looked beautiful at first glance. The water was calm, the sand was clean, and there was an old wooden pier off to the side that looked abandoned but somehow charming. The air was salty, and everything felt slow, like time had eased down. We set up our tents just a few meters from the shoreline. There was no one else around except a distant fisherman preparing his nets. We talked, grilled food, and watched the sky turn orange. It felt peaceful to the point of making me sleepy. When evening arrived, the ocean changed a little, not violently, just subtly. The waves seemed quieter than before, like they were moving but not really touching the land. I know that sounds strange, but that is how it felt. Around midnight, my friends went inside their tents. I stayed outside for a little while, enjoying the breeze and listening to the soft sound of the sea. That is when it started to feel different. The air became a bit colder, and I suddenly felt like I was being watched, even though no one was around. I kept looking toward the shoreline, half expecting to see a stray dog or another camper. Instead, I saw a figure at the far end of the beach. It looked like a person standing by the water, facing away from me. I assumed it was the fisherman who had stayed late, but something felt wrong. The figure was too still, like it was part of the scenery. I sat there watching it, confused, but trying not to overthink it. Eventually, I forced myself to go into my tent, but I kept wondering why someone would stand alone in the dark like that, not moving at all. I lay in my tent for a long time, trying to convince myself that it was nothing unusual. Maybe the person was just enjoying the night air. Beaches can attract people who like silence. Still, I struggled to sleep because the image of that unmoving figure kept returning to my mind. Eventually, I drifted off, though it felt like only a brief rest before I woke again. The night was still dark, and I could hear the ocean, but it somehow sounded distant, like it was farther away than before. I checked my surroundings, then unzipped the tent and peeked outside. The beach looked empty at first. The sky was clear, stars scattered everywhere, and the ocean shimmered faintly under the moonlight. I almost relaxed, until I looked toward the same spot as before. The figure was still there, standing in the exact same place, facing the same direction. This time, my uneasiness turned into a sort of quiet fear. Nobody stays frozen like that for hours, not in the cold seaside air. I thought about walking closer just to convince myself it was a rock or some kind of post, but I could tell by the outline that it was a person. I considered waking my friends, but what would I even say? There is someone standing out there. They would think I was tired or imagining things. So I sat near the fire pit instead, putting some distance between me and the shoreline while still keeping it in sight. I watched, hoping it would eventually move or leave. It never did. When morning finally arrived, the beach looked harmless again. Sunlight made everything feel normal. The fisherman from earlier had left, and there were only faint footprints near the wet sand. I tried to laugh at myself for being paranoid. Maybe it was just someone from a nearby village passing through, but a tiny voice inside me did not fully believe that. The day passed without anything strange happening. We swam, explored tide pools, and walked along the sand. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling from the night before. Though it lingered in the back of my mind, I kept glancing toward the far side of the beach, half expecting to see someone standing there again, but it was empty. By late afternoon, the sky turned cloudy. The breeze grew colder, and the waves became stronger. My friends decided to stay inside the tents and rest early. I tried to read a book, but I could not focus. The feeling that something was off was growing again. Eventually, night arrived faster than expected. The beach looked different under the cloudy sky. The ocean was darker, and the air felt heavier. I sat outside for a while, listening to the water and watching the dim outline of the coastline. Then it happened again. At the same spot as before, I saw a shape standing near the water. I stared at it, hoping it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. But slowly, I realized it was the same figure, same posture, same direction, like it had never moved at all. A sudden worry filled my chest. Was someone watching us every night? Or was it something else? I felt frozen, unsure whether to yell or stay silent. I backed up toward my tent, making sure I did not turn away completely. I wanted to call my friends out, but I also felt strange about disturbing them over something I could not explain. So I slipped inside my tent and sat there, wide awake, listening to the beach outside. Hours passed slowly. I could not tell if the figure was still there or not, but my mind kept imagining it, closer each time I blinked. Morning came, but I did not feel rested. My friends were cheerful, ready for another day of swimming, while I felt distracted and uneasy. I glanced toward the shoreline right away, but there was nothing there. If I had not seen it with my own eyes twice, I would have thought I made the whole thing up before we packed our things. I wandered near the water on my own. The tide had washed most of the sand smooth, but I noticed something that made me stop. There was a line of footprints leading toward the sea, but there were no matching prints leading away from it. They simply disappeared where the water touched the sand. A strange chill went through me. I turned back to my friends and called out that I was ready to leave. I did not want to stay any longer. We drove home, and they talked about planning another trip someday. I smiled and pretended everything was fine, but inside I knew I would never return to that place. Sometimes I think about that silent figure, how it never moved, how it appeared twice, and how those footprints ended right at the shoreline. I wonder if it was someone waiting for something out at sea, or if it was something that did not belong to any place at all. Since then, I still visit beaches, but I never stay out alone at night. I do not stare too long at the water in the dark either. Maybe I am just being cautious, or maybe I learned that some quiet places are not as empty as they look. Whatever it was, the memory still lingers like a shadow, and I know that if I ever see someone standing motionless by the water again, I will leave right away, without waiting to learn what it wants. I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. It was supposed to be a relaxing beach trip, nothing more. I was tired of city noise and wanted a quiet escape. So when a friend recommended a small coastal village, I thought it sounded perfect. No crowds, no loud music, just sand, sea, and calm moments. I never expected it to become a memory that still makes me uneasy today. The beach was almost empty when I arrived. A few fishing boats were anchored far out, and there were only 2 other people on the shore. The water was clear, the wind was gentle, and the air smelled like salt and sunlight. It gave me the kind of peace I had been craving for months. I booked a small room at a simple guest house near the shoreline. The owner was friendly, but spoke little. He warned me not to wander too far at night, saying the beach got very quiet and different after sunset. I laughed politely and said I would be careful. I did not think much of it at the time. That evening, I walked along the sand, watching the colors of the sunset melt into the sea. It felt like time slowed. Everything seemed perfect. I sat near the water, letting waves wash over my feet, feeling that rare sense of stillness. When night arrived, I stayed out a little longer than planned. The stars came out, and the moon reflected on the water in a way that made it feel unreal. I noticed the 2 visitors from earlier had already left. The beach was completely empty, which felt peaceful at first, but slowly turned eerie. I stood up to walk back when I noticed someone farther down the shore. It looked like a person standing near the edge of the water, staring out at the sea. I assumed it was another late visitor like me, so I did not think much of it. But something about their posture seemed strange. They were too still, almost stiff, like they were fixed in place. I walked a little faster toward my room, telling myself it was nothing. But for some reason, I could not stop looking back at that figure. They never turned, never shifted, never reacted, just stood there, facing the dark water. I reached my room and tried to shake the feeling. Maybe I was tired and imagining things. But that image stayed in my mind all night. I did not sleep very well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought about that figure on the shore. Maybe it was just someone thinking or meditating, I told myself. Beaches attract all kinds of people. Still, an uneasy feeling followed me into the morning. The next day was bright and warm. I tried to enjoy it. I walked along the sand, swam a bit, and took photos. Everything looked normal again. The ocean was calm, families arrived, and fishermen worked near the pier. It was like the strange moment from last night was a dream. By late afternoon, clouds rolled in and the beach emptied quickly. I ate dinner at a small stall, then returned to my room. Something about the weather made the place feel lonely. The owner smiled politely when he saw me, but did not say much. Night arrived faster than expected. I stayed inside this time, reading on my phone. But for some reason, I kept thinking about the beach outside. The waves near the village always sounded distant at night, almost muted, like they were further away than they really were. Eventually, curiosity got the best of me. I stepped out to sit on the wooden bench facing the sea. The air was cool, and mist hung low over the water. I stared at the shoreline, half expecting everything to look empty. Then I saw it again, that same figure, standing exactly where it had been the night before. Same spot, same posture, facing the sea. A shiver ran through me. What were the chances someone would stand motionless on the beach 2 nights in a row? I stayed seated, watching. I wanted to believe it was a person, but something felt wrong. It was too still, too quiet. I could not see any movement at all, not even the slight shift people make when standing for a long time. I finally got up and went back inside, closing the door gently. I tried to distract myself, but deep inside, I knew I would not sleep well again. My voice trembled as I called out for anyone who might be there, but the silence that followed felt heavier than before. The air in the room thickened, and I could taste dust and dread sitting on my tongue. My vision adjusted slowly, and I saw faint outlines of furniture, but something else shifted near the doorway. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, but every instinct in me screamed that I was not alone. I backed toward the wall, feeling for stability, yet the wall felt colder than before, almost damp, as if it had absorbed something unpleasant. My breath began to shorten, and I forced myself toward the hall. I thought if I could just find the stairs, I could reach the lobby where there might be emergency lights or other people. The idea felt like the only thread keeping me from unraveling. The corridor stretched longer than it ever had when the lights were on. Each step sounded softer than it should have, as if the building swallowed every movement. I brushed my fingers along the wallpaper to guide myself, but halfway through that simple touch, vanished. My hand slid off onto empty space. The wall was gone. I stumbled forward and felt the flooring tilt beneath me like I had stepped toward a place that was not supposed to exist. Panic surged, and I turned around desperate to return the way I came, but there was nothing there. No familiar layout, no familiar structure, just darkness pressing in all directions. I called out again, not for help, but to hear my own voice, so I could be sure I was still real. The echo returned, delayed, and distorted, like someone else repeated what I said just barely behind me. I ran even though I could not see where I was going. The darkness crowded closer with every step, and I no longer knew if I was moving or standing still. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and I reached out, hoping to find a wall or door, anything solid enough to prove the building still existed around me. Then I felt something brush past my shoulder. Not a hand, but a presence that drew the warmth out of my skin. I froze, unable to breathe. It lingered beside me, and I understood, in that instant, that whatever was here had been waiting long before the lights went out. The blackout only revealed it. Summoning whatever courage remained, I whispered that I wanted to leave. The air shifted, and suddenly my hand struck a surface, a handle metal and real. I yanked it open and stumbled through. Light burst over me as I fell into the stairwell emergency lamps, humming weakly along the walls. I spun around, ready to slam the door, but there was no doorway behind me, just a plain wall, as if nothing had ever been there. I made it outside somehow, but even now, whenever the power flickers or shadows stretch across my room, I feel that same presence, watching, waiting for the lights to fail again. I never thought a beach trip could leave me scared of the ocean, but here I am, telling you this because it still follows me in my sleep. It happened 2 years ago when my friends invited me for a short weekend getaway. Nothing extreme, just swimming, grilling, and relaxing. The beach was quiet, not a tourist spot, more like a local secret. I liked it because it felt calm and private, almost like the whole shore was ours. We arrived close to sunset. The sky looked amazing, orange fading into purple. The waves rolled slowly, and the wind carried that salty smell. Everyone was happy, chatting and unpacking. I remember standing near the water, letting the tide wash over my feet and thinking how peaceful it felt. If only I knew that this same beach would become my worst memory. That night we set up a fire. The stars were bright, and we were laughing about stupid things. But as the night got deeper, something about the place started to feel different. I caught myself glancing at the shoreline more often than necessary. There was nothing there, just darkness and water. But it felt like something was watching from the edge where the waves faded into black. Around midnight, I decided to walk alone for a bit. Sometimes I like quiet moments to clear my mind. I did not go far, maybe 20 meters from the camp. I could still hear my friends talking. I walked toward the water, letting it reach my ankles. Then I heard it, a sound that did not match the ocean. It was like someone taking a breath too close behind me. I turned around fast, but saw nothing, just sand and shadows. My heart beat a bit faster, and I told myself it was the wind. I went back to the group, trying not to think about it. We talked for a while longer, and then everyone went to sleep in their tents. I stayed awake listening to the ocean. It should have been calming, but it was not. The waves sounded uneven, almost like footsteps moving around. At one point I could swear I heard someone walking near our tents, but when I peeked out, there was only darkness. I tried to sleep, but it was difficult. The strange feeling kept growing, like something was creeping closer each minute. It was not fear, not yet, just discomfort that I could not explain. I finally fell asleep, but it did not last long. I woke up to the sound of the waves again, but this time they felt louder, almost like they were closer than before. The air felt heavier too, like the atmosphere had changed. I unzipped my tent quietly and stepped outside. Everyone else was asleep. The fire had burned out, leaving only faint orange embers. The shore looked different under the moonlight. The tide had risen much higher than before, and for some reason it seemed to creep closer with every passing second. I walked toward it, not sure why, maybe trying to understand why it felt so strange. As I got near the water, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. There were footprints, human footprints. They led from the ocean, toward our tents. I froze. There was no one else around. We were the only group on the beach, and my friends were still sleeping. The prints looked fresh too, like someone had just walked out of the sea and wandered around. I followed them slowly, keeping my breathing steady. They stopped near my tent, then circled around as if someone had stood there watching me sleep. My chest tightened. I remember whispering to myself that maybe one of my friends had gone for a swim, but it made no sense. The prints led back toward the water. There was no trail going away, only a trail returning into the ocean. I could not process it. Who would walk into the sea in the middle of the night like that? And why were they barefoot? I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the waves. They looked calm, but there was something wrong underneath them, something unseen. I backed away and returned to my tent, trying to convince myself to relax. Eventually, I drifted off again, but my mind stayed restless. When morning came, the beach looked sunny and peaceful, like nothing had happened. I almost believed I imagined it, until one of my friends mentioned feeling uneasy that night too. He said he thought he saw someone standing near the shore, but he assumed it was me. That was when the fear began to sink in. We all brushed it off, but there was tension in the air. We tried to enjoy the day, swimming and playing around. But every now and then, I would catch myself staring at the place where the footprints had been. I could not stop thinking about it. As the evening came again, I decided not to wander at night. I stayed closer to the group, trying to feel safe. But when darkness arrived, it felt like the beach itself was watching. That second night felt heavier than the first. The breeze was colder, and the ocean sounded restless. We sat around the fire again, but there was less laughter. Everyone admitted they had trouble sleeping the night before, though no one wanted to talk about why. I could tell they sensed something too. When the fire died down, I decided to stay awake while the others went to bed. I sat on a log facing the water. The moon lit the waves just enough for me to see the surface moving. I should have felt calm, but all I felt was dread, like something was waiting beneath that dark water. Hours passed. My eyelids felt heavy, but I refused to sleep. And then I saw it, a figure standing near the tide, facing the shore. It looked like a person, soaking wet, hair dripping, body still. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered to myself that it must be one of my friends, but deep down I knew they were all asleep. I slowly stood up. I did not want to get closer, yet I felt drawn to it. The figure did not move. It just stood there, like it was studying the camp. I took one step toward it, and the moment I did, it stepped back into the water without making a sound. Then it was gone, swallowed by the sea. I rushed to my friends and tried to wake them. They were annoyed at first, but when they saw how pale I looked, they listened. I told them what I saw. One of them laughed nervously and said, maybe I was tired. Maybe I misjudged a shadow. The others agreed, trying to stay logical, but I saw doubt in their eyes. Nobody went back to sleep easily. We sat inside one tent together, pretending to relax. The night dragged on, and at some point, exhaustion won, and we drifted off. Morning came with clear skies again, acting like nothing was wrong. But the ocean felt different to me. I watched the shoreline, half hoping to see nothing and half scared something would appear. We planned to leave that afternoon, but before packing up, I decided to take one last walk along the beach. I do not know why. Maybe I needed closure. I reached the place where I saw the figure. The sand was smooth again, no footprints this time, but the water was colder than it should have been. When the tide washed over my feet, it felt like someone was holding my ankles for a moment before letting go. That was when I realized it was not over. Not yet. Whatever was out there had followed us longer than I thought. We packed our things in silence. Nobody talked about the uneasy nights anymore, almost like we were trying to erase it. But the beach did not let go that easily. On our way to the car, I turned around one last time. The shoreline looked empty, but I felt eyes on me, like something was waiting for us to leave. The drive home should have helped me relax, but I kept thinking about the figure, the footprints, and that strange grip on my ankles. I told myself it had to be stress or tiredness, but it felt too real. When I got home, I showered, hoping to wash the feeling away. Yet when the water flowed over my legs, the memory rushed back so clearly that I had to step away from the shower for a moment. The days that followed were uncomfortable. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure standing at the water's edge. I could almost hear the waves again, even though I lived nowhere near the coast. There were nights when I woke up thinking I heard someone walking outside my window. Each time I checked, nothing was there, just darkness. A week later, one of my friends texted me. He did not want to admit it, but he had been feeling strange too. He said he kept dreaming about rising water, like the ocean was calling him back. Another friend messaged a few days after, saying she felt watched when she tried to sleep. We tried to laugh it off, but none of us really believed it was funny. I never went back to that beach. None of us did. Even if I try to convince myself that it was imagination, part of me knows it was not. Something walked out of the sea that night. Something that did not belong on land. It did not hurt us, at least not physically, but it touched something in our minds, something we could not shake off. Sometimes I think the ocean hides things beyond our understanding, things that do not want to be seen, but sometimes wander too close. And I wonder if we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. To this day, I still avoid beaches at night. Even daylight makes me uneasy if the tide rises too close. I tell people I just prefer mountains or lakes now, but the truth is simpler. I am afraid that if I stand near the water again, I might see it waiting for me, standing in the surf, watching with eyes I never actually saw but can never unsee.